So let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a video game designer. Funnily enough, I ended up becoming a musician, but I think when I was a kid, I just liked the idea of telling stories and the idea of just creating these little worlds. Really, there was a lot of aspects of my life that I think I kind of gamified growing up, and so that kind of led me to think about my history with overworld maps in video games. Okay, you have the main action, the main gameplay or whatever of a game. Before you go in there, there's usually like some type of safe zone or hub, or just in general like a literal overworld map that you travel in between each level where the actual action is. I have memories of going to Mexico as a kid, and let's take say my grandmother's house was its own like little area, its own little hub, and we would travel everywhere over there on foot, so all the little different landmarks and stuff in Mexico would be like its own zone on the overworld map. You'd have like the bustling plaza downtown where you'd encounter all the vendors and unique services. Another landmark which was like, there's a dam. This is where like all the water pools by, and there's like nearby nature reserves and stuff like that. And there'd even be like little lesser known places, like a little hidden grassy field where me and my cousins would all play soccer. In any case, I remember like traveling to each location with that same mindset of like, I'm going into this zone or I'm going into that zone. And I think this feeling of these overworld maps again is like, maybe the closest you could come is like maybe like secret menus or whatever in like DVDs. Sometimes they did have like these little fun things, like you poke around and you arrow onto like a specific part of the screen or a picture or something, and you'd get like a fun hidden scene or Easter egg. God forbid, I remember we had an Incredibles bootleg as a kid that if you tapped on Mr. Incredible for whatever reason, you'd get a Eminem song. Guess who's back, back, back. So here's some great examples, I think, of overworld maps and stuff from games that I like. One example that stuck with me is Rayman 1, where you'd have like this beautiful hand-painted big overworld map. And so you start off only being able to see like the first half of it, but you can kind of see like what's going on, like what's coming up ahead. You know, you get a kind of an idea of what each stage was going to be like, and then what waited at the end of each world. There was enough like detail in the artwork and stuff that like you could tell like, oh, this is probably going to be themed after like, I don't know, like music or something like that, or the sky. And this area looks like it's going to be themed after like freaking pirates or something like that, or the ocean. The final zone somehow seemed really intimidating because it was entirely candy themed, so who knows what awaited you there. And there was enough detail to let you know that, hey, like sometimes the paths are gonna branch, or like, hey, in order to progress, you need to make sure that you collected all the little guys. Did you collect all the little guys? So it's funny, there's no gameplay there, but the idea of this like map where you travel between the different points and stuff, it just got you pumped about wherever it is you were heading to. I think one of the most amazing examples for me is the first example I think of is the game Super Mario World, which is a series that me and my dad always bonded over. And in fact, the first Mario Brothers was my first game ever. It was crazy that there was always these secrets that my dad knew about, like just through word of mouth. He'd be like, hey, here's the trick to get infinite lives, you do this. Mario Brothers 3 also had some classics that he knew about, like, hey, you can actually wind up in the background of the level if you do this and find like a secret warp whistle that'll take you to like later worlds. Heck, if you wanted to take the concept of this video, which is overworld maps, as a literal example, in the third Mario Brothers, there's this rock in the desert level that it looks like it's part of the scenery, but you can actually smash it away with a specific item to reveal a completely hidden part of the level, or sorry, of the overworld map, which reveals like a secret little mini boss fight where you can get another warp whistle. And it's things like this that somehow my old man just knew about, and it was like I'd get all starry-eyed because I'd be like, how does this guy know so much? He blows my mind away. I think really this is kind of what started my obsession with maps and secrets, because it became something special that me and my dad like just had intimate knowledge on that like not many other people did. So again, Super Mario World, the game that I was originally talking about, was like that on steroids. The secrets had gotten bigger and harder to find. The freaking like actual map and stuff was just terraformed to reveal secrets, and like suddenly like things would just spawn out of nowhere and reveal like this completely hidden thing that you didn't expect. Each level before you entered it had a color in the center of the circle that could signify, hey, there's actually a secret exit to this that's going to reveal more on the map. You just have to go out of your way to hunt for it. And so this game was actually later than the original Mario Brothers, so I was like the one that knew more about this specific one than he did. And so I felt kind of like the cool kid, because it was like, hey, I can tell you how to access like the Star Road in this game, or the Extra Zone, where all the levels are like the most difficult levels in the whole game. I think my favorite was like this little tiny little island above a ghost house in the game, where like no one else except for me knew about it. But when you unlocked it, it unlocked this little, just not even a level, just a thing you could enter for just bonus power-ups, so that you could just clear any level really easily. And I remember telling him that, just like, hey, if you want to make your playthrough easier, here you go. There are some video game maps though that are not just about like the bond between me and my dad, but sometimes it'd be more of like a solo thing, more about the idea of conveying adventure. I think the Pokemon series is super notorious for this. It is a little bit of a different style as the maps and stuff that I've been describing so far, because again, the video game maps are usually like a break from the action. It's like a place where you access the levels, or a place where you're able to take a breather, like nothing's really at risk or at stake here. But the Pokemon maps, they really sell the idea of like, you are a kid, that you're becoming your own person, you're on your own little adventure, and as you conquer new challenges and explore like this new to you territory, the world starts revealing more of its secrets to you just naturally, and you just become more and more of a master of your own like world. So the main action still is in the battles, but there's also action in the overworld, even though there's not really risk, like you can't die in a Pokemon game, for example. But what was cool about Pokemon is that the games always had a variety, because like, you know, obviously the main selling point is the Pokemon themselves. So the terrain would have like a good variety, where you'd have mountains and oceans, lakes, forests, cities, large savannas, ancient ruins. Pokemon Emerald and specifically rewarded you incredibly if you took the time to explore its map in full. My favorite example is the underwater cavern in this game, where essentially you are presented with like this really like just tiny little spot where you can dive under the water. That's not mandatory in the game. And when you dive underneath there, you're presented with what is a bunch of tablets that have the Braille alphabet, you know, the alphabet that's meant for blind people to be able to read. And then I remember like figuring that out, and then manually writing down things as a kid, like okay, this is A, B, C, D, and having to transcript this like Braille writing into regular English in order to just de-encrypt the messages and stuff that were like part of a puzzle later on. By continuing to explore the map, I ended up unlocking these smaller ruins in a different part of the map, and each of these ruins like would contain this like these ancient, almost alien looking Pokemon. And they were real different from the usual encounters of like, oh my god, these are like my fuzzy friends, like my travel companions. It was like, no, like these guys mean business. What you unlocked here, like not only are they really powerful Pokemon, but they're kind of intimidating. Like the lore around them reveals that like they had been locked away by ancient civilizations, and they're just real, like almost like this cold feeling, like you're not gonna like bundle in bed with a Regice, for example, with a different design in mind. Mario is more about like, here's like the entrance to each level, whereas Pokemon is more about like, here's a world for you to explore and really sink your teeth into. And then sometimes a video game map could be a little bit of both. So it can be a pause from the main action of the game, but it's also a place to still like explore, but you can still do the usual stuff that you would do like in a normal regular level. So my pops was always like a 2D video games kind of guy, like he liked his Marios. So when it came to like 3D gaming, the stuff at the time that was cutting edge, because I'm 30, I think he more so dug like how like far graphics had come, like all of like the hardware upgrades, how the sound was like super clear and like stereo and all this high fidelity stuff going on. So a game that comes to mind as a good example that nails both for its video game maps is Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast, where it just perfectly captured this feeling of how we would bond over a shared interest. But we would both approach this interest for different reasons. So in Sonic Adventure, there are like main levels that you have to access in like a big hub world. So these like actual main levels are where the risk is, right? Like this is where you can like lose lives or get a game over, or where you're gonna make the progress to actually advance in the game. But the main overworld is just like a fun little hub where you can freely walk around with no risk to yourself, but you get full access to like the little character's moveset. So Sonic and stuff can run around and totally fine, like in the same way he would in a regular level, but it's just a hub world. It's not a real level. It's just a place for you to like digest and enjoy. I guess technically Sonic can drown in the hotel, but we won't talk about that one right now. So what was cool about this is that I could hand the controller to my dad, like, hey, check out this game. he could just walk around, you know, again, there's no risk. It's just a cool overworld map where you can just check out how they designed everything and like freely explore the character's moveset. But even for me, like there was tons to check out as someone that was more involved with games and more down to like sink my teeth into figuring out what are the little details of that the designers and stuff made for this like hub world. You still have like these landmarks and stuff that you would see in like other overworld maps, you know, like in this game you have like the city, and then you can take a train to the ruins area, which has its own things to explore. At one point, the like enemy ship of Dr. Eggman crash lands, you know, and that becomes like an explorable part of the overworld too. And there's like puzzles and stuff, so it's almost like some parts of the game even contain a little bit of a game within a game, because in order to gain access to certain levels, you'd have to figure out like these little small puzzles, which usually boil down to like find the key in this part of the hub to unlock this other level in a different part of the hub. But I felt like it broke up the pacing pretty nicely, and I would say it's honestly like an entire genre of 3D games. That's what collectathons boil down to, right? Like your Mario 64, or another one that me and my dad bonded over was Spyro the Dragon, where Spyro the Dragon was pretty blunt about like, nope, you want to find enough of the shiny trinket in order to make progress, or we will not let you through. Sonic Adventure I thought was a better example of it, because like I myself would just dig around looking for like these little hidden emblems that would like unlock fun like bonus features and stuff for you, like cool artwork. You could even stumble into things like the Chow Garden, which is infamous among like fans of Sonic Adventure as being like its own, like people want this as like a standalone game basically. But it also had its fair share of cool secrets that like you kind of had to know what was down and could spread like word of mouth, like the same way as Mario or Pokemon. My favorite example was just running around like the egg base, and you could run into like the different models of Metal Sonic, which as a young fan, like you'd never had seen him in 3D, so it was a real cool experience running into that. I came full circle later on when they did like the DX port a few years later, because in that one, if you decided to collect all those emblems that I mentioned from earlier in the hub world, I think some are in the regular levels too though, but you would unlock Metal Sonic as like a playable skin for the main character, so you got to like play as a cool thing that you found as a secret in like the first version of the game. So video game maps and hub worlds are just real special to me for these reasons. I think they're overlooked because they're just not like the main area where you would make progress or like encounter like the main gameplay or whatever. But being able to explore like every little nook and cranny for secrets or alternate paths or Easter eggs, I think is really unique to this medium. I just really like the whole like just word of mouth sharing with friends, you know. Like me and my dad would go back and forth with secrets on Mario and how to beat the game faster and how to access like the really hard levels on the playground. Like I'd have friends and stuff where we would all sit around and discuss like the secrets in the Pokemon overworld, like how to find like these really powerful, just like almost like otherworldly looking Pokemons and ancient ruins and temples in the world. And it really just altered my brain chemistry even. Like I'd start seeing like my real world environment in the same way I would these video game maps. Like just I'd like start paying attention to the smaller details and notice from when people are putting in the time to be able to like put in these details to show like, hey, I love these ideas and these worlds I'm presenting to you. Like take your time to really explore and like get to know them. The last gift I ever got from my dad before he moved on from this world was a mini Super Nintendo, which is just a Nintendo that plugged into modern stuff with a bunch of pre-built games into it, which I love the idea of because it had Super Mario World on it, which I knew was the Mario that he knew the least about, which I thought was like the perfect opportunity for him to just like, hey, like remember this scene that we like would talk about a lot? Unfortunately, his hands were pretty damaged by like arthritis and just a multitude of issues, so he wasn't able to physically play a controller anymore, which was hard to see happen. But what that did lead to was a little bit of a conversation about specifically like the secrets that you could find in these overworlds and the fun back and forth that we would have over like, hey, do you remember how to like beat this specific boss? Yeah, if you knew about like this part of the overworld, you can actually get a bunch of power-ups and stuff where like that will like make the boss fight so much easier. And really, isn't it nice sometimes in reality to get a little bit of a pause before you have to get back into the main action of the everyday? And I think maybe it could also encourage us all to think in a way that just encourages a lot of small detail thinking and putting in care into the small things that maybe not everyone will notice, but I think the people that really care will notice, and it will mean a whole lot to them. So that'll do it for this video. Feel free to subscribe. I have tons of like just ideas about games and stuff in general, because I'm really passionate about them. And let me know what your favorite video game maps and hub worlds are too, because I had to leave out so many like of my favorite examples, even from like the games and series that I already mentioned. In any case, I'm gonna get out of here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.